Didn't burn. I thought it would burn because like some really, really deep. Maybe it was fell like an hour. Well, I mean, no. You're not even here.
Really just kind of like, any like I do then. That's.
And I was so bored. I did that one thing. I was. It's like I literally had my mom off the shirt over it. It's there. Dude, I found shit, but it's like. Oh, yeah, screwdriver. They don't have any label. I want to know. Watch it. Come back.
Watch the income tax. Fucking stairs. Wrong.
Did you guys get the handouts? You got two there? Oh, there you go. I got it.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Fuck you.
Not.
I don't know what's wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thelma. Landon. You gotta say something. I'm not looking, I'm not seeing. Matt,
That one is. It's funny because I saw him this morning at school. Yeah, and like basically what it is. He was just walking. That dog called it. That's small. He was all the way down. The DB.
Yeah.
okay. Saturday, we're gonna come here. And do some stuff. So the units tonight. What? Health, did you say? So You guys have your first handout here by any chance?
The very first one,
What's that?
the very first one you did this?
Yeah. No, the whole handout, which was introduction to green, and a bunch of green sustainability stuff with it. So, yeah, so there's a list that compares green building categories. It was like the last page. So. Don't worry about it. Next week. Next week is pre-midterm week. So we're gonna spend part of the serious prepping for it. So I'm gonna bring all the copies of all the handouts. So if you came late to class or you lost some. You take it.
And if you have all of them,
All in the beginning.
yeah.
It is in the as well. Tomorrow. So this rebuilding category. Rick, technical, Rick, technical. Yeah. Technical, yeah, hand out. Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go get it. So. Okay,
I got it. I
oh, you do, sure, yeah. You have one?
I might be.
Why not?
I do like that one.
We need to get one. It's a green building. If you get financial aid, you can get it for free. Otherwise, get it at, how many got it on Amazon? Where is that?
No, it's like online, I just looked up like the, they,
Really, what, how much,
like, what the shipping, the total, maybe.
the Lowe's names it? Better World books, Amazon has a bunch, and they use them, they're like, 5, 10, 50 bucks.
I didn't say it for.
No. Wasn't it? I'll write it for you. So, at the beginning of the book, the first chapter, there's something about the green principle. That's right there, down green, what did I say?
Rebuilding encompasses a required construction, it's basic green building, it's a track pod of three interregulated goals, energy efficiency, conservation of natural resources, and water quality.
Okay, right, remember that? So then we had on the first handout, which I haven't probably have yet. I compared a bunch of books and the text and stuff on the internet. Did you get a handout, right? Did you get a handout? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So energy efficiency, we've done some of, right? What did we talk about with that? Yeah. Well, how about conservation of the resource? So, yeah. So what about saying? If you have your text, you lay it out, Hot tech. Okay, energy saving and energy efficient. If your house has a lot of leaks in it, is it energy efficient? Right. So we did a whole unit on finding the leaks in the house and flooding. The whole handout. Okay. So we're gonna do a building performance unit after the kitchen. And we're on a Saturday, we'll do a blower door deck, the back to the test. Finally. Yeah, I haven't had a Saturday to do it, we'll do it then. So ventilation. Blower door has to do with ventilation, like test the ventilation of the house. Has to be built. You wanna get that ventilation. Yes.
What do you want to use on the counter?
No, not yet. Not yet. That's one back. I want to get it back. Thank you. He can hear me. He mostly wants to hear what I'm saying. So energy efficiency is using energy efficiently. What else does that stuff you do? What uses it? What uses energy? Appliances. Water heaters, maybe. So are there more efficient water heaters than less efficient water heaters? So what are the more efficient water heaters? Heat pump. Now we're going to talk more about those on the HVAC. It's still in performance to combine with HVAC. We'll talk more about that. That's what we did mention about heat pump. So also for just general heating house, heat pump more energy efficient than furnace and duct system. Just remind you guys and stuff. There'll be stuff on a test which we'll go over next week before the test and get it again. How about were there less and more efficient ways of heating hot water outside of heat pump water heater versus gas water? Right? You know, electric, well, that's in the electric heaters are the words that were just resistant heaters, but they're heat pump works on them. So that's technically an electrical heater. But outside of water heaters, something else that heats water. Solar, right? Solar hot water. Now, this was big in the 70s when it was invented, everybody had it. Then it died off because it wasn't very sexy and photovoltaics took over because making electricity and stuff a lot more. We need electricity more than we need hot water. But if you go around the world, you travel, every place around the world, I mean every place has solar hot water heaters. And you can tell it's usually they have a heater on the roof and it's got the panel with the pipes in it, and then it's got a holding tank next to it. So you see it's a little flat panel and a holding tank everywhere. Greece, South America, Europe. I mean, we're the only ones who don't do it. I think has something to do with our lifestyle. Because we Americans like to take baths and showers in the morning before they go to work. Well, it depends. Working class people, which I've been part of, and also been non-working class. Get a handout. So I've been working class most of my life. Carpenters, how many of you carpenters take showers in the morning? No, because you get dirty, right? It's you're taking at the end of the day. But if you work in an office or some professional, you have to take your bath in the morning, right? Because you're going to define it. So if you have a hot water heater, when does it heat the water? During the day, and not even, it takes a while to do it. So fill the whole tank. So you're talking about the afternoon before it gets hot. So if you want to take a bath in the morning, that doesn't work for us. That's probably, I'm guessing that's one of the Americans have done.
Does, does an area need to have like a certain climate to do something,
Well-
like if it's cold, but the sun's still shining?
That's fine. That's a great question. No, with solar electric, actually, the colder it is, the better it functions. Well, because the heat, when the heat gets between the roof and the panel, it takes away some of the efficiency. So you like it kind of cold and sunny. So desert is really excellent place. Especially if I get, you know, what it's cold at night. There, you know, if you look at the world's desert, Saudi Arabia is full of panels. So it's really successful. And the same goes, mostly the same goes for the hot water. Yeah, so I guess Europeans, if they use that system to take their baths in the afternoon, when they get up from work, you know, to take their baths when they go to school. So they just learn to do that, because that's what they have. We're one of the few doesn't really. But those are efficient use of hot water, so we're missing out. So then you have conservation of natural resources. So what are those natural resources? What? No, conservation of natural resources that we're using in the house.
Oh,
Yeah. We can talk about things. So what resources does the house need? That gas, okay, what else? Water, wood, yes, wood, yeah, of course, okay, great. So, you know, energy is considered a natural resource, so it kind of, we can talk about under energy efficiency or conservation of natural resource, but conserving water definitely. And we did a whole unit of saving water. So we've touched on all, tonight we're gonna do indoor air quality, which is on every list of categories. Because mostly because we started tightening up the pump to make it more energy efficient. And when they didn't leak and had an air exchange that was pretty liberal. We didn't notice the toxins. We've always had toxins, we've always had crappy material. Mostly the poor people suffer from toxins because if you're rich, you buy furniture that's solid wood and you're not having toxins. But if you're middle class or less, you can't afford that, so you buy things that have particle board, different things that are really formaldehyde is made. So it's actually an equity thing too. But so as we tighten the houses, we realize that we already had a limit on the books of the air change. We talked about that. The code says you have to have an air change. Did a handout. The code says you have to have three. You have to change all of the air in the house every 3 hours, or 1/3 per hour. But so if your house is leaking, no problem. You're not safe with the code, but the toxins not going to affect you as much. But if you tighten the house, save energy, you're not going to be good with the code because you're going to be too tight. So then you got to put artificial. You got to change the air, but instead of having to go out and leak, so you can't control it, where it's on top of it, you're going to control it with ventilation. So that's when we first started noticing the air quality, and then as well as figuring out better ways to ventilate, we started looking at products that go into them. And oh my God, what a surprise that was. Now, America prides itself on being the chemical go-to nation, you know, better living through chemistry is not one of them. Monsanto or one of those. And it has chemistry boosted agriculture. How's that?
That's sense.
How does chemistry, how does chemistry, modern chemistry help agriculture?
Yeah,
Yeah, the way before gene.
that's the same.
Yeah, what are those all made from?
Poison gases, they, or you.
Or, yeah, poisons and, how about just plain, fertilizer? So fertilizer is synthetic and it's made from it's made from oil plus nitrogen. And the nitrogen we got, we decided to do it at World War II, we made all this, weaponry fight the war, which has nitrogen, that's the explosive. We had all this leftover nitrogen. So the chemical factory said, hey, we can use that nitrogen, don't throw it away. The war's over, we don't need it. So they took it and they started making fertilizer, adding chemicals and oil products. And that fertilizer really boosts the ability of land to grow crops for a while. It really gets rid of weeds and fertilizes the land, but it also kills the soil in certain ways. Anybody know how that is? Yeah. They don't think about the nitrogen. They don't think about what the soil is a living thing. That's a really interesting thing. Our scientists don't think that. Now that we have ecology and biology, progress, now everybody knows it. But so they put stuff in that would kill all these little microbes, which are important for making the soil rich. You know, making holes in the soil, heating up things, using it as fertilizer. You know, most of the world runs on microscopic food. Our bodies, soil. That's pretty much it. You know, bacteria eat stuff, poop it out. And that's a huge part of our food process is body work we can from soil. But we put a save and spoke there when we started killing that unknowingly. So what it does is you can use nitrogen fertilizers will boost the value of the agriculture as long as you keep using it. But as soon as you stop, then all those organisms are dead. It takes a long time to grow back. So it's not very good if you just stop using it. And it'll never grow back into good soil. So we've been on it for so long. That when we pull off it, it takes a little wait period to get reconditioned soil.
Oh, well, is that?
I don't know.
Like years?
Yeah, years. Not, probably not more than 5 years, but, you know, there's a lot of animals that, plants that give off nitrogen, or fix nitrogen from the air. You know, the air recruits most of nitrogen, right? You might have one oxygen, part of it, but nitrogen is part of it. And these plants take their roots take the nitrogen out of the air and put it in soil. So plants do it naturally, but when you want to boost agriculture really quickly, you can't wait for plants to do it. That would always be first. Chemistry allows it to be first. So we have to go back and, you know, in Europe, they figured out before artificial fertilizers, because they've been farming for thousands of years, they figured out if you grow crops that are nitrogen building, like clover, and they're crops that don't have a lot of value for food or you can't sell them. But if you take a field, you take a third of your field, half your field, and you don't work on 1 year and you plant clover to reuse the nitrogen, then the next year you go back to it and that soils a lot better. So they figured out they could get more productivity, but they had to let some areas go fallow. So that whole system, Europeans discovered, and that's actually a good system, it just takes time. And Americans don't have, we're in a hurry, we've got in this population, I've got the food. But this green revolution with artificial fertilizer spread around the whole world. They call it the green revolution. I think it's going to get 50, India had it. Everybody's really happy with it. The quantity of produce is growing. But over time, the heat rates, pretty soon the productivity gets less and less. And then it's not good anymore. I can't feed people. It's a hard lesson learned. All your farmland, but it's like India. The soil drawing, that's really a rough lesson. Yeah, been here. Because there's a lot of people. Okay.
Like 16 harvest.
So indoor air quality. So we're going to look at the things that contribute to it. And next, so we're going to look at chapter 14 or next week. We're going to look at chapter 15, which is material. I put them together because it's the materials that bring in the toxins, but we're going to talk about the toxic materials tonight, and then next week we're going to talk about just building materials in general. You know, what makes it single materials. Yeah, now let's talk about ventilation. Hey, did a. Yeah, so turn your books to chapter 14. No, I lied. Turn to chapter 5. We got some remedial, a little bit of remedial stuff. So chapter 5 is framing, right? So turn to 84, page 84. Yeah. See those pictures? 84. Yeah. Too much wood. You see this quite often in houses.
I mean, they're missing blocks.
God knows why they put all those studs in and trimmers. But that's just more thermal transfer and less insulation.
Probably ones that have bigger window at first.
Yeah. And sometimes it's either just a space using a stud as your spacer. It's kind of a lazy way to do carpentry. I'm sure I did it when I first started, but it's just the most horrendous way in terms of getting more insulation in. On 85, that picture is in your handout that you got the other day, and we've all discussed that. But look at 87. Page 87. If you don't have a book, look on your neighbors. That's a plan view, and I've drawn that on the board, but I wanted you to see it in the book so you didn't think that I was just full of crap and pulling your leg. So the upper corner, see it's a U. They don't always do a U. Jim does a different thing. This is a 2x6 wall on the upper one. If it were a 2x4 wall, you could just put 3 studs and they would be wider than the plate and they'd have nailing for drywall. But when you have a 2x6, you can't do that because you're wider than that. So you just take a 2x6 and put it sideways. And that sticks out for drywall nailing. And then they put one on the outside for, this is what I don't understand. In several places I've read, they say that flat stud on the outside, the top of the C there in the corner, is a nailer for the sheathing or siding. But you've got an end stud. I mean, Jesus, you can't hit an end stud. I don't know why you need a whole another 2x6 there to nail into. But anyway, see see where it says circulating cold air? You got that? That little note, it's got an arrow, goes up. See the triangle that little arrow points to? That's exactly what happens. This drawing for insulation, this squiggle, that's just the symbol for insulation. But they were nice enough to actually draw the way fiberglass actually bends. And it goes from the wall, then it bends up to hit that block, right? So that's where those triangles, it's really clear to see it here. And those triangles go floor to ceiling. So if a lot of air goes in where your baseboard is, because sometimes sheetrocks raise, some drywalls raise it, and then you put the baseboard on to cover that. That's not caulked or anything. That's all loose. So air gets in there pretty easily. Goes right up that triangle in the wall, all the way to the top, because the plate on top's cold, because it's not protected from the outside. Goes straight up, hits that plate, and goes out the thermal bridge on the top plate. So a lot of that air doesn't even go through the insulation, it just goes up the triangle on the inside there. So this is a really good view of that. I wanted to show you this. Also, the picture below has a better way to do it with just one end to the wall, one end stud, and then the drywall clips. I found my box of drywall clips. Somebody put it up where you couldn't see it in the shed. I don't want to name any names, but I was determined to find it, so I tore apart everything. I finally found it in this freaking box up in the corner. So we're gonna actually use those Saturday. We're gonna do installation. We're gonna use them, and because then you see it in the raw and you won't forget it. Okay. I know you've read this, so go to page 96.
96.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's got eye joists in it, and I tried to find a sample of piece of one. But before class, I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it, so. Most of you know what they look like or have even worked with them, but for those of you who haven't, so the piece at the top and bottom is, what do we say, LVL? It's this stuff. So it's little layers, plywood, and then they cut it something like this. They would cut it like there. That's about how wide an eye joist top is. It's about that thick. No, maybe it's not even that thick. And then they notch a groove in it and they put, I don't know what I did with it.
Wow.
But I had a piece of OSB, and then they just put that in. That's how they make it. I thought the OSB was up here, but
It's
the real. Now see how those wires go through the OSB? So sometimes they even pre-make holes in that stuff, you know. Huh?
They're pre-cut holes for going on.
Yeah, they used, when it started, you cut your own, and you just use a drill and, you know, but now they have pre-cut drills. You might still have to cut your own if it's in a weird place. But they want you to cut it in the middle of that OSB, not toward the end, because it's weak, it weakens it if you're too close to the wood. So you just knock those out, and you can do all your running, your plumbing, everything. So that's a pretty good deal. Then go to page 102. Now I was gonna save structural insulated panels till the alternative building, because in Santa Barbara it is a form of alternative building, but in other parts of the world it's standard. It's not an alternative. They use it a lot. So I decided to do it tonight while we were going to cover some of these framing things we didn't have time for in the past. So you see that pile that they're craning up? So that's just 5.5 to 6 inches of foam with OSB on both sides. At one point, they put drywall on one side, and I was in Maine in the 80s. They would put drywall on one side and OSB on the other, so you were all ready to tape your wall when it was in. But I think they probably had problems, you know, with shipping. You can really mar up the drywall, so I think they stopped doing that. So, but the other thing is, you know, these things are foam, right? And they've got both sides of the wall. So you may have asked yourself, how do you get your electrical and plumbing work in there if it's already, the wall's already finished on both sides? So they have these metal weights, round weights, and they're pushed by a metal thing, and they heat them up, and they can, what you do is, you don't do anything. You take your plans to your house, you send them to the factory. They take care of everything. They know where your electrical, because you've got electrical and plumbing plans, and they make chases. They melt the thing. They just put that little rod in and they melt a little 1 inch or 2 inch chase all the way through the, that's how they do it. And they do that with all of them, and then they number them so you get them in the right place. If you add something or it could be in the wrong place, or you found a better place, you can do it yourself too. There's ways you can do it. So you're not stuck. But it's really handy if they do it, then you're all ready to go. So you don't need to get in the wall, actually. The insulation is already there. It's good insulation. Why do you suppose it's really good insulation? Because other walls have that thickness of insulation and fiberglass and stuff. And that's not the best insulation, that white. It's not polyisocyanurate. It could be. In the factory, they could probably charge you a whole bunch more and put this in. But why? So what makes up for the fact that it's not quite the highest value insulation? What do you think? It's a whole wall of insulation, no studs, just OSB on the outside. So what do you think? You guys have to talk up. Cause yeah, no, thermal bridging, right? None. That's the beauty of this kind of house. That makes up a lot. That makes up for the slightly lesser insulation with. So people in cold places use it, and see on the next page, 103, you do roofs with it too.
Fine. And like siding and stuff right on it, and like shading it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you'd sheathe the. An ordinary roof has sheathing on it, right? They're gonna put such the same as that.
That'd be difficult for siding, wouldn't it?
Well, siding only has sheathing to go into. Once, if you're lucky, you hit a stud.
No, you could stack the shit on it. What about structure then?
What's that?
What about structure? Yeah. How would your siding hold up to that?
You can
Your
put,
plywood's gonna be half inch and that's all you're gonna nail to is half inch.
yeah. Unless they make it 3/4, I think they just make it half inch.
How do the joints come together?
Okay, so they have to spline them together. Now, I had a film of a house
With glue?
that was built in Trout Club that had these in it. Joe Campanelli, a local contractor, had it, and I was involved in it. I kind of narrated part of it, and I can't find a copy, which really ticks me off. And it was made about 15 years ago. But that had a really good picture of these guys putting these SIP panels together and putting the little spaces between them, and it's really pretty cool. The way they've got it. I'll look up whether you can nail on it. You can nail into sheeting. I put siding on sheeting. It doesn't have to be in studs.
You put a stud at least like 24. We do that siding.
Yeah, they don't, I'll find out. They don't show that this house here was finished, so we don't know what it was on it. I have a whole book on SIP somewhere. I'll get that too.
They probably have their own siding.
So, and then the last part of this chapter, is on timber frame, and we're not gonna look at that tonight. We'll look at that when we do alternative building. But it's got a great house, nice pictures on this last part of that chapter. So now turn to chapter 11, which is the one on insulation. Oh. Where was the I wanted to show you this comparison with advanced framing. And I thought it was in the. It's a real art form to put an index together. An index that works. Give me a minute while I find this. Oh, yeah. Page 88, Quebec 88, sorry. One last thing in the framing chapter. It says, there's a little blue box there. It says Holton's Hidden Lake Study. So this company, apparently one of the largest in the country, did a advanced framing on one of its houses in Tracy, California. And he built test homes to determine how much money advanced framing would save in construction and to study its effect on heating and cooling. Because a lot of times we come up with these ideas, but they haven't been tested very much. And we found out years later that they weren't that great. You know, this company decided they'd run their tests. The work was supported by the Department of Energy, so they got money to do it. So they used 2x6 wall framing on 24-inch centers, which remember I said is advanced framing here, but in the rest of the country, it's normal practice. It costs $1,600 versus $2,700 for a conventional framed house with 2x4 studs, 16 on center. That's a considerable amount of savings, right? That's what, $1,100. So someone was asking me if it was cheaper to do 2x6 at 2 foot versus 2x4 at 16 inches. I said they were about the same. So I take that back. Actually, the 2x6 saves more money, saves more lumber, saves more money, and has better energy because it's got more insulation in it. And the thermal bridges are 24-inch center rather than 16, so it transfers less heat in the stud part. Advanced framing saved a total of 738 studs, amounting to more than 2,100 board feet of lumber. Energy costs in the advanced framing house were a total of $710 a year, compared with $1,000 per year for the conventionally framed 2x4 house. So it's like 3/4 of the energy cost. Whole wall R values jump from 9 to 15 by switching to advanced framing. That's because you have 2x4, you have 2x6 instead of 2x4. So it's really a more efficient way to build. So there's really no, now, you know, this study was done 10 years ago. Who knows how the lumber market's gone since then? And this was in Tracy, California, but rural Northern California. So I can't say how these figures hold up for Santa Barbara, but I've been told that advanced framing is equal or better in cost. We know it's better in energy because it has more insulation. But I've been told it's better, it's equal or better in terms of saving wood and saving money. So that in itself is a good thing to do, yeah. Okay, let's go back to the chapter 11 on insulation. Hey, can anybody find out how much, I mean, what kind of insulation is in a SIP panel?
Sub panel?
Yeah, those SIP, structurally integrated
Oh, I see.
things. Yeah, look on the chapter we were just on, or somewhere around there, there's a mention of it there. I'd be curious about what that, it looks like it's just extruded. So page 214,
You guys staying awake?
harder. You wanna come in and learn some more?
Yeah. I'm not that. Can't fit anymore. No, I was just walking around. I'm gonna be teaching in here in spring, so I wanted to check the classroom out as a place.
Oh, yeah,
I saw your truck. I thought you'd be over there.
we started over there, but we moved here because
Okay.
they talk too much over there, so.
They're better in this side.
You know, Timmy just turned the whole thing around and put those, who makes those tables?
The festival.
The festival tables. I had one for years. Nobody used it except me. I used it. Nobody used it. I told everyone how to use it. I come back and he's got 8 of them in there.
Looks like somebody's already cut into
Well,
it.
that was probably the one that was originally here.
Oh, that was yours.
Yeah, it's got a different, yeah. And, yeah, it's funny. But, so he put all the round tables back in the other room.
Oh,
So.
Huh.
But it looks like he's gonna work in both rooms, you know, cause. Those things are for doors and windows in 23, right?
so both of those are glass.
That's cool.
Rooms, so this is the classroom now.
No, this is, other people use this like ESL and places. And usually I use that even when I'm it's lecture class, because I have samples of things and there. But I started doing math in here, but I didn't need anything, and I kind of like the feel of it.
Yeah.
It's more traditional.
The AC goes like
Yeah. Yeah,
ecological landscape. Yeah, it's fun for it. If you're into that. Sort of like.
yeah.
See you guys.
Okay, bye, Luke. So 214. God, there's so much to learn. It takes so much time, you know?
It's polystyrene or polyurethane.
So see that bat, huh?
Polystyrene or polyurethane.
Yeah, well. See, they can do. I wonder if they make their own polyurethane. And then they make it so it comes in those right, real even shapes. Cause you couldn't spray it in there, they manufacture it, you know. So it may be that, and that would be really good insulation. If it's poly,
Or they have a steel mass. Panel.
exactly,
Spray it in.
yeah, if they do that, then it's really great.
Yeah.
It would cost a lot more. Not twice as much, the insulation part would be twice as much, because that's better insulation.
Yeah.
I don't, I've felt it in building sites, and it doesn't feel like polyurethane it could be, but it doesn't feel like polyisobutylene for sure.
Well, it's polyurethane foam.
Yeah, that's what the regular foam, spray
Yeah.
foam is.
Or the XPS through polystyrene.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's better.
Okay, so 214. 214, this guy bought this plastic covered insulation, which they started making. We went to Home Depot Saturday. They didn't have any there because they stopped, didn't catch on. So see the guy's putting it in. So you can imagine that stuff's it's not gonna be able to touch all 4 sides because that plastic's gonna interfere, all 6 sides. So I've never been a fan of it. I mean, it's a nice idea to get the itch out of the process, but you still gotta cut pieces, you know. If a base thinner or shorter, you gotta cut it anyway.
For rock wool?
No, it's for it's fiberglass. See on 214?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you for rock wool. Rock wool is like a different material. It's not
Oh,
fiber.
we're gonna look at it. We're gonna look at I found the video on Rockwool. In fact, we're gonna do it in 2 seconds. Oh, so on 219. No. Go back to 217. Mineral wool, that stuff in the attic, the black stuff everybody sees in Santa Barbara, that's a picture right there. Rock wool and slag wool. And then the blue jean, guys putting the blue jean up, it's no good. You know, the blue jean, the cotton weighs more than fiberglass. So if you put it friction fit, it's never gonna stay up there. Fiberglass won't even stay up there very long. So unless they put a backing on it, which they haven't yet, I wouldn't advise it. Then on 219, they show a guy using cellulose that was sprayed with liquid form, not dry form. And so it dries and you can take a what would you call that? A machine to cut it off. The excess. And then on 221, it shows polyethylene foam. And here's one thing they do that's really kind of interesting. They put metal channels going the other way on the studs. You look at that picture. Picture on the left shows it before the, and that gives you a surface to, you know, scrape it off at. But also, what also does it do?
Air barrier.
Yeah, what else? Yeah, it's creating a thermal boundary, right? That little bit, that's the thickness of those things, which is like 2 inches maybe.
The metal is very.
Metal is, but in between where the studs are.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I don't know if the metal cancels that out. I mean, it's just that front area. You could figure that out.
Yeah.
Mathematically, it'd be pretty easy. Okay, 223. Here's a couple of inside and outside corners in a house showing how you can use rigid foam on the outside. So it goes over the it's funny, they've only got sheathing on yeah, don't look at that, it's confusing, sorry. Okay. Is that on? Oh, yeah. Can somebody get a light, one of the lights? Please? Can you get the light again? Oh, never mind, I got it.
The problem is, we can't really answer that question without taking into consideration the house envelope as a whole. These are envelopes. This is a house envelope. The real problem is that we can't answer this question without taking into consideration all the things that make up the house envelope.
Some people would rap with.
That guy's a jerk.
Call your doorbell.
I couldn't go through the whole thing,
This
but
brand new subscription.
it's too technical. Here's our buddy.
Hey guys, welcome back to my.
Hey, guy. Hey, guy.
This is what I've been calling the real rebuild project.
Yeah,
I'm at a critical stage right now. I'm in the installation phase. And in fact, my sheetrock comes in 2 days. We're gonna start hanging the rock on the walls. So this is a perfect time to give you a tour of my installation, show you which products specifically I used and why I used them there. And in this video, I'm gonna give you 7 reasons why I chose Rockwool for the majority of the installation of my house, minus 2 minor areas where I did a different type of installation. Today's video is sponsored by Rockwool. Let's get going.
yeah.
Very long lasting material. And it also has, because it's made from rock, some natural fire resistance tendencies. So for instance, if you just take a standard household lighter and you were to try and ignite this, you're going to notice that it will not burn. If you did this to a whole lot of other materials, you will ignite them. And this one is not gonna burn. Isn't that cool? So fire resistance is a big reason why I like Rockwool. But one of the things I also like about it is that it's relatively straightforward to install.
Of course, when the fire is burning your house and igniting all those wonderful studs, it's not gonna matter what kind of insulation you have, right?
Oh no, my house was framed on the exterior on 16-inch on centers, which means that these bats right here are a friction fit bat. Now this is unfaced, and I like unfaced bats because then I can deal with vapor and air separately. But it also means you gotta watch these details, like this right here, I've got an electrical, or pardon me, I've got a low voltage outlet down here, that's gonna be a Cat6 wire for Ethernet. The insulators did a great job on this by.
So. I disagree with him here. I think insulation with bats is much better because you can staple it and you don't have to worry ever about it sagging. And you can deal with stuff inside just as easy with bats that have paper on them. But this stuff, the one difference is, you know, fiberglass is pretty wimpy, right? And you put it in, this stuff's a lot heftier and it'll probably stand up better and not sag without paper nailing, you know, stapling it down. So I would say it's probably, this one might get away with that, but fiberglass I would never, and they used to do that, they used to friction fit bats, but you know, unless you really know what you're doing and get them really tight, they're gonna droop, and once they droop, that's just what that bad job of insulating was. Remember we saw those graded, the way that inspectors are grading it now, it would be a C job and make them redo it, so. Anyway, we're not gonna see all of this.
Slicing the bat so we get full depth insulation in that cavity rather than stuffing it in and having a wire in there. Now, when you're working with it, you don't also need a whole lot of PPE, which is nice. Typically, you're gonna wear long sleeves and gloves. Now, I'm not installing, I'm just messing with it. That's why I just have gloves on. And you're gonna wear a dust mask. You don't even need a full respirator, really just a dust mask. In comparison to a lot of products, like you think about the guys that are using spray foam in a house, you have a giant rig, you have hoses, you have respirators, you have off-gassing to deal with all those other things. With this, open the bag in here, pull the bats out, and you're gonna friction fit it in each location. Now, one thing I really like about Rockwool too, is that they're telling you the actual bat right on there. So this is an R15 bat, and this is an exterior wall. Now, if you pan around here and you look at this one, this has the Rockwool logo on there, but no R value. This is their interior product. This is called Safe and Sound. This is a sound dampening bat. And that's really the second thing besides fire that I really like about Rockwool is that it's a very sound dead product. We're going to do a test a little later in the video. We're going to show you how much sound control this is going to give to your house. But if you just stand here, spit at it, it's nasty sponge pulling that out. Now, on the other hand, one of the things I like about Rockwool is that it's hydrophobic, meaning if we were to take a water bottle and drip some water down this bat right here, the water would run off like water off a duck's back. It's not going to in place, but I had to think about how it would hold. Also in the band joist areas of my house, that's the areas where I've got insulation in my floor joists, where my floor joists come out and stop on my walls. That'd be an area that spray foam would work because it's going to stick in there. But bat insulation needs to be pinned in there. Now, that seems like it'd be a downside, but in fact, I think it's actually a benefit to not have it stick because I think I want that remodel friendliness. You know, I'm thinking about this house as one that might get passed down to a future generation.
Okay, hit the lights, would you? Get the idea. So I think that's a relatively new product. Do you know how when 10, 15, 5 years? Yeah, that's pretty new in the building. So that company's had the Rockwool, you know, the loose stuff for years, and they just decided to make this. I think they probably even made the soundproofing one first, and then they realized, hey, this holds up pretty good in walls. Why don't we make an outside wall one? So, you know, he likes it. I didn't get what R25, he said? 15. 15,
That's comparable.
huh?
That's comparable, I guess.
Yeah. But like I said, I used it in my house for soundproofing. It works pretty good for that. Again, for soundproofing, you have to have not have something solid like wood span both sides or the sound will go right through. So so I put that in, then I put a half inch of soundboard, I guess it's called.
Yeah.
It's a paper Homoso product. And that stops a little bit of that vibration, so.
Have you ever tried mass loaded vinyl?
The what?
Mass loaded vinyl.
No,
It's like a thick rubber mat that is really good at like taking out bass. Like if somebody has a very deep voice.
yeah,
So I can travel through easily through.
oh yeah, through other things, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You staple it like to yourself. So it's not how you want it.
Okay, so let's go to the handout. Go back. A minute. Big handout, huh? So when you're old and you're talking to your kids and grandkids or grandkids, you can say, I had a teacher that he used to pass out this stuff called paper. And it had printed material on it, and instead of looking at the screen, we read it in front of us. And they'll all laugh and go, oh, grandpa, that's, you're telling kids. No. So, lower door test. So I decided to split ventilation partly in this unit because it gets rid of the toxins, and we're talking about health and indoor air quality. And then it's also something that uses a blower door to it, so it's got building science in it. So in the building performance unit, in a couple of weeks, we'll also look at some of it. But so here are some reasons, this first paragraph, for establishing the proper building tightness. Now, when they talk about when you get something on blower door test, they're gonna introduce it, and they're gonna talk about why sealing the house is good. So it's always good to read that stuff because it reinforces what you've seen elsewhere and you've heard me say. So it's good to get it from different directions, sometimes it's worded in a way that you can understand it better. So for establishing proper building tightness, reduce energy consumption due to air leak. We just talked about that tonight. Avoiding moisture condensation problems. Now, why is that? How does that happen? Anybody? We've talked about it a little bit. So where does moisture come from in a house? Comes from people, comes from showers, comes from cooking. There's just tons of moisture, and more than you think in a house. We take it for granted. Anybody here ever lived in dry places like Colorado? Oh man, the winters there are so dry. You have to put now I don't know what they use. They have all kinds of new what do you call them? Moisturizer. Something that puts
Humidifiers.
Yeah, humidifier. But they used to just put a pot of water on the stoves, and everybody had wood stoves. They put a giant pot and just keep it burning to get that water into the air. It's so dry. I mean, I grew up in Southern California. I lived in Boulder for a couple of years, and man, who would have ever thought, the winter when it's snowing, that inside your house would be parched dry. But
How are the wood floors there?
you what?
Wood floor, do you have wood floors, or like super cracky as well?
I had a wood floor I didn't build a house. The house I ended up buying had a wood 2-inch wood floor.
Because like in Switzerland, I know it's also very dry sometimes,
Yeah.
and a lot of houses have a problem. You put wood floors in there that like
Oh, the
they start
correct.
cracking and like coming up
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, this didn't happen there. Avoiding uncomfortable drafts caused by cold air leaking in from outdoors. That's not a problem here. Has anybody ever felt a cold draft in Santa Barbara? You could. I mean, in the winter, there's a few days. Some of you live in North County, maybe there's a certain, in the winter, there's sometimes cold enough that, and if the wind was blowing, anybody live in Lompoc?
Yeah.
or Santa Maria?
Yeah.
Is it okay, Wendy?
Oh, yes.
So if you got drafts, you'd feel them, winter drafts, yeah. Okay. So ceiling's good for that, and making sure that the home's air quality is not too contaminated by indoor air pollution. So then skip the rest about building door. Now, I have a mind to skip the math here. I know you guys are all math freaks. So these next 2 pages tell you how we used to solve it, and then the pages after that are how we solve it, how the government wants us to solve the problem of tightness now. But because if I go through this, only a few of you are going to be able to follow it, not because it's hard math, but because you're tired, and to follow math takes that fresh mind. So I don't think I'll do it. If someone wants me to show them privately, independently, we can do it on a weekend. At the end of class, I'll run through it. Anyway, I'll just tell you some things about it. We won't do the math, but they're trying to figure out how much air goes in and out of a house, right? The transfer of air, and they want to make sure there's enough so that you don't get, so water doesn't create mold problems, and you don't have too much carbon. Carbon dioxide can be a problem if you can't get out, and carbon monoxide, combustion gases and stuff. So they want you to have that 3 air changes, air change every 3 hours, 0.3 an hour. So they've made that, but then when they go to figure how much a house does, or how much a house should have, they have these formulas, and the formulas vary, and they can be actually quite different. It's not an exact science, but obviously some of them take in the volume, because you're looking at how much air is going in and out. So you're concerned about the volume of air. Then again, other ones just take the square footage. So most houses are 8 foot tall, but you could easily have rooms that have 10 feet or 15 feet. So, but anyway, some use just square footage, some use cubic footage. So sometimes they'll just take the cubic footage and they'll figure out how much air should be changed with that cubic footage. Sometimes they'll take how many people live in the house, how many bedrooms are in the house. And sometimes they'll do both of those and take the bigger ones, the bigger number. So there's formulas for how you do each of those. We won't, like I said, we won't do them. Then there's also a factor. I just want you to get an idea of what goes into figuring this. Also, there's a factor. If you look on the 3rd page, it says 124 weatherization. There's a little table on the middle right, says table for N factor of Southern California. So there's a difference in how many stories a house has. Why do you think that would make a difference? Why would it make a difference in terms of air going in and out of a house to have multiple stories as opposed to one? Why would they be concerned about that? Yeah, that's actually a good answer. I'm not sure that's part of it, but it could be. Also, there's a stack effect, right? The air rises, goes in the house. So your houses have different pressure. Each floor has a different pressure than the other floors. But I think that has something to do with it too. So you actually add that if it's a 1-story house or 1.5. We used to have these split level houses. Those would be considered 1.5. They have a little mezzanine, or 2 or 2.5 or 3. It would have a different factor that you figure into this formula. And the difference between 3 and 1 is, you're multiplying the numbers by 25 or 18. So that's a considerable difference. So what you're doing is you're taking what your house should, given the cubic feet of air in the house, you figure out how much exchange that is to keep a healthy thing. You can figure that out just from these formulas. Then you're gonna do a blower door test on your house and actually figure out how much air is coming in and out. And the blower door does that by pressurizing the house. It's got a fan and you can pressurize it by blowing air in, or you can depressurize it by blowing air out. And each test is testing for something different. They both test the change in energy, but there's other reasons why you do it one way or another. But say you pressurize a house, right? Then that pressure is going to want to relieve it. It's going to want to go to less pressure places. Pressure, it's like water, always goes to dry. Heat always goes to cold. Pressure always goes to less pressure. So if your house is pressured up, it's more pressure than the outside because you just blew it up with the blower door fan. So that air is going to try to get outside and it's going to go out all the leaks in your house. And the number of leaks will determine how fast that air goes out, right? Which will determine how fast you have to pump the air back in to keep it even. So they just measure how hard that fan has to work to maintain that certain pressure, 50 pascals of pressure. And that tells you how leaky your house is. It's ingenious. It's such a simple formula. But we had to understand about air pressure, which we have for a long time. The pressure is named Pascal, and Pascal was a philosopher scientist in, I don't know, 1500, 1600. So we've known about it a long time. You know, there's pressure, right? The atmosphere presses down on us. And they can measure that, and that's how they get 50 pascals. If you fill a tube that's an inch in diameter up with water, 50 pascals will press that water down a certain amount. You can measure that. So you can measure the atmospheric pressure. And so you can figure out, you can keep the house at that pressure and figure out how hard the fan has to work to pump air in as it's leaving through those leaks. So if the house doesn't have many leaks or no leaks, then the fan doesn't have to work at all, right? If the house is really leaky, the fan's really blowing air in because it's leaking out real fast. So that's the instrument. We're gonna do one of those blower door tests in a couple of weeks on a Saturday. But anyway, so then you get actually how much air change per hour you have in reality. So you have what it should have by law to be to exchange enough air so you're not sick, and then what you have. So you're either going to be even, which is okay because you're obeying the law. If you leak more than that, the law says it's okay because you're not toxifying yourself. But then you're probably losing a lot of energy if it's really leaky. If it's underwise and it's too tight and it's not giving you what the law wants for air movement, then you've got to ventilate it better. When you make houses tighter, they're always going to violate the code minimal air change because you're making them tighter. So then in order to bring it back up to the code, you have to ventilate then. But that's okay because you're ventilating in certain places where you won't have drafts, where you can control it. In cold areas, you can actually run the hot air going out past the cold air coming in and warm it up a bit and save energy. We don't do it here because we don't have, the weather's not cold enough. But in northern climates, they have these, we used to call them air-to-air heat exchangers. Now they have different names for them. We're going to cover it somewhere. But yeah, so you houses have had ventilation enough for health, but it's not usually where you want it, and you're losing a lot of energy with that. In Maine, I lived in Maine for 10 years and built. And the old timers used to put tar paper on the houses. That's where you get tar paper shack from, because some people were so poor they could just with tar and they wouldn't have enough money to put siding up. But the tar paper would keep some of the weather out, so they call them tar paper shacks. A really poor person would have a tar paper shack. And then they would go along and take their sheetrock knives and score paper so the house would breathe. I think they put that mainly up for waterproofing, but you know, where they lapse, the only where air gets in, and those things have a little bit of asphalt, and they can kind of stick and form a pretty good seal over time. So they went and actually scored the things, which now we think is crazy because we're trying to do just the opposite. But we have Tyvek now, so we don't have to worry about it. Tyvek does the scoring, microscopic scoring for us. But they knew houses had to breathe. They knew that much in the old days in New England. And probably the air quality was better because they didn't have modern industry making bad chemicals and stuff, right? But the air quality in old colonial homes was pretty damn good, really. Everything was organic because they didn't have chemical sprays, so everything was organic.
Well, they had small, didn't they? Like,
They had what?
Like small, like,
No, I mean way back, like 1700s, 1800s, before.
but they still have factories, right? Like.
Not in rural New England. London, you know, the industrial centers had them. New England started their factories with water, so they didn't even burn. They didn't even have combustion things in the 1700s. So it was maybe 1800s when the industry started getting. And then you're right, contributed all the smog and crappy stuff. But before that, you know, a couple hundred years back, the indoor air quality is probably pretty good. So, and in New England, they would joke about the drafts, you know, the only place you could sit sometimes in the winter was right in front of the fireplace, because every other room had a draft going through it from those slits. Yeah.
The indoor air quality be really poor from all the wood burning.
Yes, if they didn't have proper chimneys. But they, you know, they figured that out pretty well. They even had stoves, the Franklin stove, you heard of that? That was obviously in the colonial times. And England, they had a guy who perfected the flue of the stove. So they if they were installed right, you could get rid of that gas. But you're right, that would possibly be a factor. Yeah. And wood smoke's not great for you either. We never used to think it was bad, you know. We never used to think gas fireplace, cooktops were bad because the air combusted. What's the problem? But it doesn't all combust. That's the problem. So you get little particulates. We're finding out more. You know, it's funny how research is driven by needs. You know, so you don't research stuff you don't think you need. So whenever someone gets sick or people are getting sick, then they go, "Oh, we got to research this because something's not right here." So it's very sporadic, the research on this. But that's a good point about the fireplace. They have a neat thing in New England that they got from Finland, Sweden and Finland. I forget what it's called. I haven't talked about it for years. But they would put the flue going out would be, they put masonry around it. And they have this long masonry flue, and it would go around the house, like in the corners, but a long way, and then it would go out, and it would heat the masonry up on its way out, and really keep the house warm. And it would get rid of it would get the smoke out of the way fast. So it's a dying art. They were, when I was in Maine, there were still a few old guys who could do it. And now we have such modern things that people don't do it, but rural people, probably still in Scandinavia, they do it, you know. That's a very natural thing though, because you've got rock and ceramic around, you know. I always thought that was pretty cool. The one problem with it is if the weather gets really good, all of a sudden your house may be too hot. So you got to be able to cool it off pretty quick too. Okay, so yeah, so the blower door allows us to compare the actual house to what a house should be to meet the government air changes. That's just a legal thing. But then all that's thrown askew when we want to tighten the house to save energy. Then we know we're going to not pass the government, you know, fresh air thing, and then we have to ventilate as a result. Now I talked to you at Home Depot about how the government's made it really simple. They used to have these sheets and you had to figure this stuff. And a lot of contractors weren't good at math and they just went nuts trying to figure out this stuff. So what the government did, they got a lot of complaints. Turn to the thing that's got this oval, dark oval on it. This is even a few years old, and I looked, and they don't have anything now. I don't know what they're doing now. Government's a funny thing. But this was right after, and it's not bad. A simple solution for meeting Title 24 ventilation requirements. That's the air change every 3 hours. So what they do is they have a simple formula. It goes by the square, look down a little ways, you'll see the formula. Goes by the square footage of the house over 100. And then the only thing is you add this next factor, which is the number of bedrooms plus 1 times 7.5. So if you have 2 bedrooms you add one, that's 3, so it's 3 times 0.75, which is over on the right, they work out the problem. So that with the 15 from the first equation gives you 37.5 CFM. That's pretty simple, huh? Don't need to do any of the other stuff. So what that means is that a house 1,500 square feet with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath has to change. How can I put this? Requires that many CFMs to change, 37.5 CFMs per minute. Okay, that will satisfy the 0.3 ACH or 3 changes per hour. So to get that, so that's what you need. And so then they say, okay, it's still easy. You got a bath, you have a range hood. If you put a 50 CFM range hood, 50 is bigger than 37.5. So you can use your range hood as your all house fan, ventilation fan. The problem is because of vent hoods, a kitchen vent hood, range vent hood is in the middle of the activity of the house. It's pretty, if you've got how many of you have vent hoods in your range? I've had students that haven't, so I can't assume. It's illegal not to, but sometimes people don't. They just have holes up above and that's it. They make a lot of noise, don't they? Especially on high. The 50 cm, if you have it's probably on the high thing. When you use a vent hood for a whole house fan, it has to go 24/7. So can you imagine listening to that? You come in for breakfast, you just want a cup of coffee and, a slice of bread. You don't want to turn on their range hood for any reason, but it's there. So the solution is to change the fan in your range hood, which is not expensive, and buy a fan that has under 1 SON. Remember we looked at SONs, the sound scale, when we were at Home Depot? They rate ventilation fans by the CFMs and by the sound. 1 SON is enough to live with, or less. So you can, if you just get a 57 CFM fan under 1 SON for your range hood, you're good to go. You can also use a bathroom fan. If you use kitchens are never closed up. They're usually part of an open plan. Bathrooms have doors, obviously, for privacy. So you got to make sure if you use that fan for a whole house fan, that the door is open when it's not being used. Because the whole house has to use that to vacate air. Yeah, so you got that? So the new way is pretty easy. And then there's I would read all this at home. The rest of these pages, just go over lightly. Because this is what the government put out to help contractors figure this out. It's kind of interesting. So I thought that was kind of funny that they had to do that because people just were scratching their head going, well, I don't know. Okay, next we're going to go into the actual hazards. Let's take a break, huh?
Yes.
Then we'll come up and do hazards. I think that's all we have left, I think. So let's take 15.
Let's go.
Louis? Oh, no kidding. You know him?
Yeah,
Oh, no kidding.
he sent my dad nobody in class.
Oh, yeah, but I would have been him.
Yeah, you didn't think.
So, what's your last name?
Morty. Same name as
What is his name? Daniel too? Well, that's a pretty common name. I forget the name, but I never forget a face. So I would recognize it.
Yeah, he's like.
In fact, somebody,
It's because I guess Joe had like a couple carpenters and then some of them couldn't read plans and he's like, sent my dad to school to read some plans.
Yeah.
Whatever.
the roofer, Martine Roofing,
Yeah.
he sent some of his students to me to read plans.
Yeah.
So I ended up knowing all these people in town. But Joe did this house up in Trout Club, and 154. And what's that, photography company that used to be in Santa Barbara? I forget, but they moved to Ventura, Ventura, and then they went out of business. But he had them film it. And then I did a narration at the end, talking about the school.
Yeah,
And I used to use it in my classes, but I've lost, I had a bunch of copies and,
yeah, he was with Joe when they were doing the Riviera Bank.
oh, yeah. Okay.
A couple projects too, but that's the big one that I remember.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, we'll say hi to him, you know. Give a picture, bring a picture of him.
From my dad?
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you can find it. You know, I was in, my dermatologist getting my pre-cancer stuff. That's what, you might not have it, but. This fair skin gets it. But, anyway, the woman there said, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a teacher. I had a book I was reading. She said, you must be a professor. I said, yeah, I am, but not, I'm reading philosophy. I was she said, what were you a professor? I said, well, house building. She said, where? I said, City College. She said, my dad went to that program. And she pulled out a picture of, I didn't the name, I recognized the name, but I couldn't put a face to it, and then she pulled out a picture and I went. I said, say picture.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, cause he was talking about how like Joe redid his office with like recycled materials.
Yeah,
So,
Joe's office now is, the Sun Power, the groups I talked about,
Yeah.
they ran his office from him.
really,
Yeah, it was too much for him because he was sort of downsizing.
yeah.
And then he got an office for Carol that comes here, Carol Ashley. They shared he had an office in that lot where she had her stuff.
Oh, okay,
And he had a place where he stored stuff too. He was there for a while.
yeah. Is it still, was it, I don't remember his office, but was it on Milpas or where was it?
It was off of Milpas. It was on, what's the one street, one up, it's got the cactus name, Nopal.
No,
It's off of Nopal and it goes the other way.
yeah,
It's between Milpas and Nopal.
almost by Ace. Neighborhood almost. Kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I go up there because I've been going up there since Joe, but now I go up there to talk to him. So,
So he's not building anymore?
he's not, is he not building?
Yeah, is he not building? He was,
I don't know.
I haven't heard from him in a while.
You know, he can advise because he's got all the green experience,
Yeah,
so he might be doing that. Sometimes people when they get older, I don't know if he's my age or a little younger, he's not older than me, he might be very young. You know, if they have an expertise, they'll, sub themselves out as advisors for things. I mean, he was instrumental in starting the whole green
yeah,
building program, with the contract association. They have I was telling you, they had the walls, that historical landmark, had those probably done in the 20s. So I just decided, I'm gonna drive down there tomorrow, and I'm gonna see who's in that office and ask them if I can read past it. To see it.
I bumped into him with my dad like 6 years ago. That's like the last time I saw him. He was
Joe?
just- yeah, Joe, he was just going to Home Depot and we just like bumped into him.
You know, somebody, his name came in a conversation recently, I'm trying to think what it was about. But, man, it might have been about the bank, because he's been involved in that bank for a long time, So, I don't know. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, what did we, oh yeah, we did that. Yeah, I used to give tours at Trout Club Home. And then the people that did it originally sold it, and I went to the people who bought it, and I said, can I bring a class up here? And they said, oh, yeah. When people first buy something like that, and it's real different, it's an example of something good. They're really excited about people seeing it. And after a while, it gets kind of old. There's another one in the Mission District that Dennis Allen did by this woman who does prefab things and stacks them. And it's beautiful. And I gave up. I tried every new client that owned it. They were getting pretty, each time I did it, they were all pretty. Anyways. We might go walk by there if you have anything down, you can see it.
Was that Allen Construction?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did the woman's name, what's her name? She was real famous. She got out of it for doing prefab units. And she did them all, like the finish work and everything, it wasn't just the frame.
Oh, but she prefabricated walls.
Yeah, she did them, wash that factory in Washington, and they'd ship them down. No, they were modules, they were like, you know,
Oh,
and then they would stack them together in different ways.
yeah.
So there's one on, I think it's on, actually, it's Pagosa. What's the name of it? Pagosa, is that the name of the street? Down in Mission. Anyway, it's got a, I can drive there, but I can't remember the name, but it's got a, had one thing and then had this big space. And another one, they put this thing over it, but you could open up the walls in the front place and just, the whole thing was like, the outside would just come in. It was really cool, I liked it. And she stopped doing those, that was a good idea, because they could complete them, and you wouldn't, there wasn't, you know, they had to have cranes and stuff situate them. You know, they had to have the grounds already. If General would do that, like Allen Construction, and then they would get a crane and situate them, and then very minimal work, because all the finish work was done, so it's just minimal after
So
that.
minimal labor sounds like.
Minimal labor, so that was a good deal, because, you know, it's pretty cheap to make things in a factory. You know, where all the machines are there and then ship them down, so. I don't know where that's going, it comes and goes.
Yeah. I mean, coming and goes just like trades.
But if-
It's like very rare.
But if you did a standard unit, like I was telling the class about that place in Mexico, Teo Tijuana,
Yeah.
they did that, they did all the units the same, and the only way they distinguished each other was the insides and custom ones.
Yeah.
But you could make all these, like, you know, a number of, type, if you got a kitchen one and a bedroom, a couple of standard designs. And then you could mix and match, and you could pile them up on top of each other, like these are kind of staggered.
Yeah.
So you can make all kinds of designs, even though the whole thing is prefab and there's a limited number, so you don't have a lot of ways. So people could live with that kind of customization, it'd be great, but you know, this country especially is such a individualist place.
Oh, right.
We want to be different down the line.
I won't have like rooms meant for snow and
Yeah.
everything or something like that.
Exactly. I mean,
Or castles.
there's nothing wrong with that, but it kind of, now it kind of flies in the face of conserving materials and stuff. And in itself, it's not wrong. It was kind of fun to do that. But you know, if we could only say, well, that was really fun, we had a great time, but now it's obvious we can't do that, and then stop doing it. Say, well, we had our fun.
No.
You should have been there. It was great. But no, you know,
You're just gonna keep going.
we're gonna keep going. But if we could learn to just appreciate the past and say, well, yeah, it was a different world, it was fun. I mean, it's so different, like between my experience and your experience, you know, it's
Yeah.
almost a couple of generations. But such differences, God. That's why I gotta retire, because
No,
I have to teach you guys, you know?
that's the thing, though, all the old guys that are made carpenters or known carpenters, they're all retiring, so like, they're trying to like absorb all that knowledge before.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, and I have a lot of past knowledge, but I don't have as contemporary knowledge, because I haven't been in the field for about 10 years. But this is a variation of past stuff, and it's easy to do. Like instead of an electric saw, you have a battery saw, and stuff like that.
Also just quoted,
Yeah,
I get paid by the hour, they can't charge you for charging my batteries.
right, right. So, but I'm more concerned about the future,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, Rodney and I have a lot of, because we're old, we have a lot of past experience, some of which is relevant, some of which is not. But I'm more concerned about,
I mean, in building terms, it's always good to look back. Like, we can't just forget about it and then keep it on.
yeah, yeah.
And then what do we do as carpenters?
Yeah, really. And you know, most of those skills are pretty transferable. I mean, people that work with their hands, you're not just working with wood, you're seeing things a certain way, you're analyzing things a certain way, so it really doesn't matter what you work with. You can jump from material to material fairly easily, just learn some new tools and stuff. It's that ability to think with material things that's important, and you get that in any trade after a few years.
That
Yeah.
adaptability.
Yeah.
Just change that.
Yeah, so, you know, really good carpenters are amazing, they can do, you know. They can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but nowadays, I feel like anyone calls themselves a carpenter and then you don't know until they show up on the job site.
This,
I mean,
yeah,
from growing up,
yeah,
hearing Rodney, Joe's name, I knew a lot of carpenters, so.
Yeah.
A lot of people nowadays don't have such carpenters, like, well, what can you do with hang doing, let's see.
I know, I know. It's true, and you know, people want jobs, so they lie about their past, I mean, we've all done that, but at some point we catch up to them.
Yeah.
And then we're, you know, we have to lie.
Yeah, I remember you were running around.
Wow, yeah.
Well, yeah, let's, yeah, this fan went out, let's turn it back on. Right now, yeah.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, it was like fall. Back.
Oh, bro, what you have?
I need a very specific.
I know, that's my bad. I was rushing over here. I actually got a quick PB&J for the cat that I'll send over here. I'll email. Okay. It's right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, did you go to the Santa Barbara?
Every job is a chance to lead. From
Okay, so let's see. Let me add you, well, latecomers.
You should. Bro, being a nurse takes 2 years. It makes like 50 miles an hour. Easy work, man. I would. Yeah, I would.
Hey, does anybody know Gavin Kaufman? He came late, he sat over here a couple times. He hasn't been around for a while.
Is you Gavin is? You know who Gavin is? Gavin?
Gavin, yeah, Kaufman,
The,
does he have other painting classes?
what? The mayor of LA. That's Gavin.
Oh, yeah.
No? California. I'll get the, hey, I don't say which guy.
Yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
See, I got a whole book on framing with I rafters.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't say anything. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does it look like right?
No. Yeah.
You break it this way?
No, that's the one. I don't know if it's default, it's default. lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But again, I know the pressure is getting controlled. But the thing I'm hand up, our wire. We'll look at that. Oh, they're probably partly right, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, the Europeans, if you go on you know, the maximum quantity. So, the good formaldehyde is the.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, signature is difficult to read. It's allowed, you know, you can look at them. It's allowed to make crap.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother listened like a private radio house. That shit, and it's leaking like that. It's leaking bad. It's crazy. But he's like, yeah, that was fine.
You know, traveling, if you live in a pool, you get down to a pool, and you get everything other places.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Well, you know, the Native Americans, like, they have most of the winter they have like feather or rather than both. I talked to number one. They did a film, did a documentary, a reenactment of what it was. They have like same thing, moccasins, loincloth, and one raft. Really nice with the snow. One of them are people. Oh, yeah. What are you doing there?
But. Yeah. But my friends. So you are
Yeah, and you're all in the step. Probably will talk about too, but. Far back. I haven't worked out.
Oh, yeah, you can just use that. Kind of like an ice in it, like a, it's got this green. And, it's fine. I'm just going off with water.
Yeah.
They have like about hours a day. And we'll have like a time. Otherwise it's free. And so I just like every morning to break the ice.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so like
Yeah, I know, that's right, man. What do they use it for? Yeah.
well, it's
why would it be?
yeah, I mean, it basically only you can feel it like when you're there, like all your blood goes in, like it's good for your heart. Like all the blood goes into your middle, and then like when you get out, it's so warm again, you can feel like the blood be back in here. So, yeah.
I saw. It's, you know, like, it's like they open that whole way. To survive to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, sometimes I'm trying to like push it on our phone. Sometimes like. Yeah, like it's a great. Like it's gonna see you get it, like it's a very. It is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, it's fun, like, I also have like a little, just sort of some water, and that way, like, because things like, when water is stagnant, it can be in there, like, you can be in there for like 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because like, there's almost like an air, like, or there's water pushing around you,
Yeah.
you stay before.
Right.
But as soon as it starts circulating, like 3 to 4 minutes max, you're like, wow, it's because you can't move anymore.
Yeah. I remember Anthony Bourdain on one of his food trips, went somewhere and he went into one of those ice things with his friend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also different if you have your hands on the water, where you get, where you dunk your house in the cells and the game changer. That killed your. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's perfect. I really want to get my mom. I have to get in. I'm first. We have to get okay, everybody. So I'm gonna try to get this, what's his name? What's that guy's name? Contractor? Anyway, he's got a film on the lower door process whole plugin. If we don't get it tonight, we'll get to it. I gotta show you guys that. Okay, handout. Everybody, tune back in. Handout: hazards in the home. So this is good for you carpenters and contractors. It's also good for you human beings because you live in homes too. So carbon monoxide, of course, talked about that. Everybody talks about that. People still die and get sick from that every day, especially in mobile homes. They're not made very well and their combustion appliances are not very safe. Again, poor people getting the brunt of this. So CO can be, CO2 can be a problem too, too much carbon dioxide. Remember in what were the moon landing, Apollo mission? Sometimes they had a big problem with the one where they scuttled. They were going to do the moon and then Tom Hanks starred in that movie, Apollo 8 or something. The carbon monoxide level was rising. That was the problem, wasn't it? Dangerous gas. Yes, sir.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Is it green building showing all the alternative building?
Yes.
Like the concrete?
Yes.
Was that in a PowerPoint?
No.
Okay.
What? But when do you need it?
I'm gonna guess lecture for Mike's permaculture classes on natural.
When is that?
In like not next week, but the week after.
Okay, so next week, this time come here
Okay.
and I'll bring up all the books I have on.
Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will that work?
Yeah, we're having a potluck in our class. I don't know if you guys want to do like a joint potluck thing.
On Thursday night?
Yeah, a week from today.
So, oh, yeah,
Because it's the last class of the part-time teacher.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna do a potluck.
all right.
So
Yeah.
we're invited.
If you guys bring stuff, yeah. One dish per person,
So this is,
or appetizer or drink or whatever.
Okay.
so if you looked at I get all my stuff off YouTube now,
Okay.
but if you just.
I thought you had like a PowerPoint with the different things, no? You just
No.
brought them up, or what, maybe it was in the textbook or something?
Yeah, could have been textbook,
Okay.
but I have a ton of books on all different alternatives, so.
Yeah, because he's talking about Cobb rammed earth, adobe, the earth bag.
But I get, like I'm gonna show in here, I've got in my permanent file, one on. Cog and one on Adobe.
I'd like to do like
YouTube.
hempcrete and some of the other ones that you were showing. I'd like to show them too.
All right, well, I'll see what I have.
Okay, that'd be great. Awesome. Thanks.
See you guys too. Yeah.
Party next week or?
I don't know. So. I don't know, because it's the midterm prep night. Yeah, I mean, I'll call them up, and if it's before or after, I'll look into it. And then I'll tell you Saturday, email you. So water could be a hazard, right? Especially with mold. I think you can have too much humidity for your health too. There are limits. Usually you don't get that high, but it's possible. Okay, then down to poisons. Okay, VOC, this is the word. Dan, Zach, you guys all got your things out to hazards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So poisons, VOCs, that's a word you gotta know. Volatile organic compound. So what's volatile mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, that's what that means, or explosive or whatever, but it's got a little more specific. Okay, here's a hint. Alcohol is volatile, like beer is volatile. What do you notice about beer? Besides to get you high, what? It's got a gas, right? Hey, I've been drinking Guinness stout lately because they didn't have the beer, the stout I had from TJ's. They have a oatmeal stout. It's a dark stout. They started putting it in cans, and I've been doing it in bottles. So they didn't have it, but then they had some Guinness, and I tried Guinness where they have a little ball in the can years ago, and I didn't like it, so I bought some. And it's nitrogen. They use nitrogen gas, and it actually makes the bubbles. Of course, nitrogen won't hurt you because, like I said, 3/4 of your air is nitrogen. It's really smooth beer, though. It's really great. but the gas from the beer, whether it's carbon dioxide or nitrogen, volatile means it gives off gas in the material.
You know, like the cans do versus like the glass bottle, because they say like the glass is like.
Yeah, but Trader Joe doesn't have glass Guinness. They used to have Guinness.
They're like, what's like,
I don't know.
like, I've heard that.
You know, they've cleaned up cans a lot because of the complaints. And so I don't know where they are now, but I think they're much better. I think they even put a little plastic coating in most cans, really thin. But anybody heard anything bad about cans? Do you guys drink much of your beer out of cans or bottles? Cans are cheaper, right? Bottles are good though. But Guinness, you know, I mean, all of Ireland and all of England drinks Guinness pretty much exclusively. So you don't want to fool around with that. You know, it's a bar beer, you know, it's a tap beer, right? And so there's always problems when they try to put them in cans or bottles. Anyway, VOC though, volatile means it outgasses. And what it outgasses is not good for your lungs. So we just started realizing we needed a name for the toxins, and so we realized they were all VOCs. But now we blame everything on VOCs, and the government actually has come to bat, and they put restrictions. So all paint and all solvents and all that have maximum levels of VOCs. They're still not great at that maximum level, but at least the government's protecting us a little bit. You can get anything without VOCs. You pay, you know, more for it because VOCs are cheap. But in a minute, we're going to look at a place and a woman who owned the place that had non-VOC products exclusively. Arsenic, you know, the green treated lumber. I mean, they alternate every year on what kind of poison they put in. I think it's arsenic's going to stick for a while. And you know, arsenic's the poison they give to people to poison them, right? So it's not quite that strong, but you don't want to have it a lot. So if you do work with, I don't know about the brown treated, they've done anything different than the green treated, probably not. I think the brown is just an aesthetic thing. Because green doesn't match anything and brown looks a little better. But you should probably wear gloves whenever you're dealing with that, you know, be on the safe side. Cyanide, that's also something they give to kill people. Or spies take to kill themselves, you know, they have those little capsules. They bite when they're about to be tortured and ripped apart. Cyanide death is much better than being drawn and quartered. Or having your throat cut, I always say. Foam board, I don't know what foam board has cyanide in it, but we better find out. Asbestos and lead, those are the main toxins. So OSHA, down at the second half of this, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, that's the government agency in charge of workplace health and safety. And they control, you know, your big companies now have a person that does nothing but OSHA compliance. Make sure that everything's straight, because if OSHA comes into your company or a site and you're flagrant in some of the details, you get big fines. And they don't fool around, they're really big. Like for instance, if they come to your site and you have your guards on your skill saws pinned up, like with a pencil, I can use a pencil, or you take the guards off, $5,000 or more to you and your company. So your boss isn't gonna like it, but then he allows it, so. But yeah, they don't fool around. If you're out in the desert or you're someplace where it's hot and dry and you're a maximum distance from water, from buying water, you better have the amount of water hydration on the site for workmen, or you get fined. There's all kinds of things. They're trying to protect us. It's a losing battle. They don't have enough people. There's too many job sites in America, but they try. So they do every year. They focus on some current malady and they go address that. That's how they, you know, work around it. You know, we can complain about that, but they probably do save lives, right? Okay, next page. You going somewhere? You gotta go?
Yeah, actually, my sister's birthday.
All right. So read through the rest of this, okay? Saturday you coming?
Yeah,
Okay.
meeting here.
Yeah. So yeah, meeting here for all you late. Where's Ivy good? It's up here. No, it's stuff. Bobby.
You know, on for business smaller.
No,
No, actually,
yeah, I believe. He's important. He's a VIP. I see that. Okay, material safety data sheets. Most of you that work in the field know about these, right? MSDS sheets. They change the name every so often. But every product in the building industry, actually in every industry, has to list the hazards, the toxins that are in their products. And they also have to list what to do about it if you get, like if it's a drinkable product, like bleach, they also have to tell how you bail yourself out. If you drink a glass of bleach, what you have to do. A lot of things, they don't want you to throw up, that makes it worse. They'll say, don't throw up. That's probably the most important thing to know. Huh? I'm not sure, but some of them, some chemicals you throw up and some you don't. It's dangerous if you throw up. So if you work for a company, they're supposed to post these data sheets for the workmen. And then they tell what happens. So if you drink something, you run to the sheet and go, what do I do? You go, don't throw up, drink a lot of water, go see a doctor, whatever. You know? But that's pretty important because there are different ways of treating these different chemicals and they're opposite. So you can get these off the internet. You can go to the company website. Sometimes Home Depot has them with the products in a thing that you can take, not always. But, when you're in the industry long enough, you know what products are borderline, and then you should probably pick these up to make sure how to handle. You know, the thing about wearing gloves, I know, I hate to wear gloves, and I didn't most of my life. And I don't know that I suffer from any of these toxins, but it's not worth it. Now, if I were to start now as a carpenter, I would wear gloves more often. And some things like railroad ties, we used to creosote, we used to just handle them, no gloves, you know. And that stuff's nasty. I mean, and a lot of that stuff absorbs into your skin. That's another thing young people don't know. They think you have to drink something or taste it, but a lot of these toxins go right through your skin. That's something that conventional cultures, traditional cultures know about. They know about things coming in the skin. They have a lot of poultices and healing things on the skin. We're not big on that in the modern industrial world. We like to drink our cures away.
Yes.
So, I mean, drinking, both senses. We like to take a pill or whatever. Vermiculite on the next page. Electricity, we won't go into that because it's more safety. Vermiculite, anybody know what that is? Seen that? It's a craft stores have it sometimes because it's a like a little they're little particle pebbles like, but they're real lightweight. And sometimes you use them for flower pots or gardening or different applications. But they come from the same mines as asbestos. They grow in the same strata, and sometimes the asbestos, when they mine the stuff, they aren't when they mine the vermiculite, they're not careful that they're not also mining asbestos. So the best rule is not to work with vermiculite anymore. You don't need to. I think they still sell it. Probably Michael's you can get it. But it's just not worth fooling with. You know, a lot of these things don't show up until later in your life when you start getting lung problems and cancers of various kinds. So, you know, you might say, oh, that's not gonna. I saw a film last night, a TV show about guys building a camp in Maine. And the weirdest thing was exactly like a camp I built in Maine years ago. The design, everything, it's the weirdest thing. But the one guy was a carpenter. We're talking about guys who didn't know what they're doing. Nobody else were carpenters. They were all just helping. And the carpenter came like 2 days later, and he didn't look like he knew much of what he was doing. And first thing he did was he shot himself with a nail gun in the arm with a 16 penny. And you know, his arm's bleeding, you know, and the guy pulls it. I said, I gotta pull it out. He pulls it out. And then they wrapped it up and that was it. And I'm going, Jesus. Because there wasn't they were, you know, an hour from the nearest city in a clinic. And then they showed him working the rest of the day, and I put nails in my hands. I put a 16 penny right there through my hand. And that's not something you go to work after, you stay at work after that happens. You go home, you wash it out, you go see a doctor probably. I mean, it could have hit a vein, it could have hit a bone. This guy just pulls it out and keeps working. Anyway. What's that?
Hope is tetanus.
Oh, yeah, and tetanus too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mainers are like that. They're kind of. I lived in Maine for 10 years. I got to know them. I mean, they're great people, but they do stuff like that. But like I said, I've shot myself. I never shot my foot into a floor, though. I know a lot of guys who shot their boots into their boots when they're doing floors. Well, no one tells you how to use that stuff, you know.
You just go.
I remember one time I was with a company. I was doing underground tile, you know, big tile for a drain, and I lived there. And I said, "Can I work?" I was out of work, and I said, "Can I work for you guys since you're charging me money for this?" They said, "Yeah." So they hired me, and I was dumping tile and stuff. And one time they put me on a skip loader. Is that little tractor that? Is that what that's called? It's the smallest tractor you can get. I think it's called a skip loader. And they didn't teach me how to do it. They just said, "Oh, you'll figure it out." And I was on top of this hill coming down, and I couldn't stop it. And I'm thinking, shit, it was in Laguna, so there were canyons. I said, I'm just gonna have to run this over the canyon because I don't want it to hit anybody. And I was just about ready to jump, to aim it to a canyon and jump, and I figured out how to shut it off. And and it skidded to a stop. Oh, man. So don't ever do anything unless people tell you how to do it, you know? There's like those, we call it where you put the nails in the concrete.
Pin shots.
Yeah, the Hilti, what do you call it?
Yeah, pin shots.
Yeah. Of course, Milpas used to have you take a test when you rent those. I don't know if they still do. You had to take a little test. Milpas rental, can you believe it?
You can.
And now you don't. You can get one, or you can. It's like buying a gun. You can buy it, not have any idea how to use it.
You need like ice. Yeah. It is not.
Right.
Yeah, you can abuse that. It's like anything else, right? You can pull back the trigger and fire this.
Oh, you feel it. You feel it. Yeah, you feel it.
Yeah. Okay, shades of living green. We're getting there. So this is from a store that Carol just called this woman. So she's alive and well. I should have her come in and talk. Anyway, she had a business called Shades of Green on Milpas. I told you, across from Superica. And everything in it was non-VOC. And she had bedding and pillows and paints and tiles and carpets and everything you could imagine. And none of it was VOC. And I'm pretty gross. I don't feel differences that much. I'm not a real sensitive person. When I went into that store, I could feel that environment. It was just felt so great. So I'm a total believer now. Yeah. And she said, yeah, it's because I have no crap in anything. I mean, it really felt good to breathe that air.
Is there any other place like that?
No, she couldn't afford, the rent in this town is so insane. She couldn't afford it. And so she went online for a while. She may have something online. I think she advised it, so she'd be a great person to have come in and talk, but this is the lesson we're doing, so maybe not. But she did this Shades of Green, Living Green was the store. And she did this rating. Okay, so everybody looking at this? So these are the categories you rated. Source, resource, where does it come from? So we're gonna look at that in chapter 15, which is after the break. After the midterm. And then manufacture, how was it made? Was it manufactured responsibly? We're gonna look at all those things, transportation, all those, but the one we're gonna look at tonight is health and environmental impact. So how does this product affect your health? How does this product affect the health of your environment? How does this product affect the health of the environment? So, you're not the only person who lives in your environment. You're not the only creature who lives in your environment. There's a whole hierarchy of life forms that live in all of our environments, and they're making it miserable for them. They all do things for us. That's the thing we're figuring out. Every animal, spider, everything, snake, does something for the ecology, the ecosystem that we utilize. We don't know it. We're just finding out. When we get rid of some of those things, then we find out what the problems are. So that's what it means when it says, how does the product affect the health of the environment? So she's going to list some of the bad chemicals to avoid in the next few pages. Formaldehyde, highly toxic. It's the next page. Known carcinogen. Everybody know what a carcinogen is? Causes cancer. Carcinogen. Found in building materials. We know we've talked about that, right? Foams, furniture, air fresheners, synthetic carpets, permanent pressed diapers, bubble baths. Isn't that great? Take a bubble bath with formaldehyde. So, I had a friend who was really paranoid. He was like what do you call it when someone's a clean phobic? What's the name of that? There's a name for that. Huh? Germphobic, thank you. And he would say, Patrick, you can't use sodium lauryl and sodium lauryl sulfate, which is in all toothpaste and that kind of stuff. And so after he told me that, I went to the store and I couldn't even find a toothpaste. It didn't have that stuff. Huh? Yeah, you can use baking soda. It's probably the smartest answer. You use baking soda?
No.
You just bite the bullet and use it. Well, you know, Tom's, toothpaste,
Tastes terrible.
yeah, it's not the best taste because we're so used to the other sugary crap, but Tom's had good stuff in it. They used to have it at TJ's. I don't know if they still have it. In Maine, they had a lot of it. I think it's from Maine. I used to use it. It was pretty good. They had a licorice, which I love. Most people don't like licorice. This was a licorice toothpaste. And it was great. Then they went up in price because, you know, in Santa Barbara, it's just exotic. They'll just triple the price for all the stupid asses of licorice. Okay. Anyway, that stuff, sodium lauryl causes itching, flakes, or skin cracks, mouth and canker sores, found in foaming agents used in cosmetics and shampoos. Yeah, to make it foam. That's what they want their toothpaste. You know, your toothpaste doesn't foam naturally. They have to put something in there to make it foam. Oh, God. Anyway, so formaldehyde, bleach. Bleach is not good for you, although you use bleach to get rid of mold. You water it down a little, so just be careful with it. It's a good product for some things. If you mix ammonia and bleach, the fumes are deadly. So if you're usually we're not in a confined area where it'll probably kill us, but if we are, so remember that ammonia and bleach, A and B, don't mix them. You know, it might be a thing that has ammonia in it, like an ammonia soap, and you say, well, I'll add a little bleach to that ammonia soap to make it stronger. So it's not, you're not just going to take ammonia and bleach. There might be two products that have both of them, each of them. So remember that the rest of your life, ammonia and bleach don't get along. Chlorine can poison it if ingested. Don't drink chlorine. I don't know why you would, but damage to lungs and internal organs. Babies could. Kids do all that stuff. That's what you got to watch. If you leave a chlorine ball around and the kid drinks it, not good.
I'm taking an emergency response class, and we're talking about like different burns last week. And
Yeah.
said, like, one of the person leading the class said she had a case of a guy who was just like opening his like pool cleaner thing with the chlorine in, and his face was above it, and then it like
Popped out on
powder, like just
Yeah.
right to his face, and he like had like chemical.
Was
burn,
it chlorine?
Yeah.
Just straight chlorine?
Yeah, like chemical burn like all over. his
Yeah.
face. And then he like, I guess didn't come to go to the doctor for like 3 days, so this face.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Guys, especially, are real macho in this world. Any macho guys in here? Raise your hand. Okay. Macho or semi-macho, that's us. It's a bad attitude when it comes to taking care of yourself. You get hurt and you go, I don't want to go. I've done that a million times. One time table saw, shot a piece of wood up and it was bleeding. I thought, I'm not going to go. And I thought, and I went and they put like 6 stitches in. And they said, if you wouldn't have done this, you would have had the biggest scar. It would have just made your face look terrible. And I could have got infected. And from then on, I said, nah, I'm going no matter what. I mean, if it's a little cut, you don't have to, but don't be afraid, especially if you have insurance, which you may not, but you know, you can ruin, like this guy with the chlorine. His face might be scarred for life because he didn't get to it. A lot of that stuff keeps burning until you get rid of it. And so if you went to a doctor, he would use something to compensate for it. That sounds terrible. Yeah, we don't deal with straight chlorine very much. Pool guys do. But we deal with it watered down and added, so it's never that bad. But what's that chlorine stuff that Comet, that's the biggest thing, right? Comet bleach and the powder. Great stuff. It takes off everything, you know, any stain. But it's probably not bad. Well, I don't know. You know, they got products that are going, you know, around all these. Drain cleaner chemicals, of course, hydrochloric acid, trichloroethane, yeah, those are not good. Petroleum distillates. Anybody know what this distillate means? They take oil, petroleum, and they distill it. And they do it in various ways. Well, gasoline's a distillate of oil. But there's all kinds of cleaning things also, like turpentine. Turpentine can come from the tree. But paint thinner, those are all distillates. And they're really, you know, they're nasty things, right? You leave paint thinner on a little tiny rag in the corner of your garage, and you smell that stuff for the next 2 months. Right? No ordinary chemical does that. So liquid gas, fertilizer, pesticides. See, fertilizer has petroleum distillates, plastics, paint thinners, solvents, motor oils. It can cause skin and lung cancer. You ever go to the pump and have the gas pump and have the signs that say can cause cancer or pregnant women shouldn't be doing this? Yeah, it's no joke, you know. Usually there's enough air that the gas fumes aren't concentrated enough, but they could, in a right atmosphere, they could do damage. So you got the point. Read through those. It's kind of nice to know those just as a human being, so you don't hang yourself up. Toluene's a bad one. That next page. TOLUENE, liquid solvents used to expand, thin, or mix products. Can cause neuro disorders. That's all you need, not a neuro disorder. You know what that means? Your nerves don't fire right. What do your nerves control? Everything. Your mobility, the way your brain functions. You don't want neuro disorders. Fingernail polish, lacquers. That's that kind of sharp smell in fingernail polish and lacquers. Lacquer thinner, that's Toluene. Always use that. If you can't give that stuff up, I know you women have to have fingernail polish.
There's some,
Do you either of you two use fingernail polish?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of you. Probably all women still, right? Just do it where there's air. That's the main thing.
I see, like, I was in I guess kind of a natural store recently, and they had like.
Yeah.
Natural nail polish.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, you can find substitutes. They're going to be more expensive and hard to find, but they're out there.
Stay
Like this woman, huh?
You can use like 10 and
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this woman who ran this thing, that's what she did. Her store had all this, didn't have a lot of, she had some cleaning products and some solvents and some paints, because there's construction stuff, but PFCs, you heard, oh, look at this synthetic musk. I read this last night and I thought, oh, there's a new one. Synthetic aroma compounds that bioaccumulate. Okay, what does bioaccumulate mean? So it means it accumulates. It doesn't process through your body like some toxins do. It stays. Heavy metals that are in paints, like especially the red and yellow paints, because I'm an artist, so the tubes of paint, people had neuro disorders, artists, from painting with these certain oil colors over the years. But they bioaccumulate, they don't pass through. And after a while, the accumulation is beyond what your body can handle. You start getting disorders. So not everything's bioaccumulative. Fortunately, the heavy metals are cadmium and lead and those things, but they disrupt cell functioning and hormone systems. God, you don't want to get into that. But listen, they're found in perfumes, fresheners, cosmetics, and deodorants. You know, musk, that's a synthetic musk. Musk is a typical compound that they use in those things, right? So probably real musk is okay, but synthetic musk. So next time you look at your deodorant, you know, deodorants have what in them that aren't good? Aluminum. So the 24-hour deodorant started putting aluminum because that, I don't know how it works, but that makes it last. Aluminum also is one of those bioaccumulants, and it's not good for your body. If you buy the non-aluminum ones, they don't work as good for sure. You just use it more often, you know, halfway through the day instead of just in the morning. You know, I mean, you gotta choose. You know, you can choose not to let that stuff worry you, and maybe you'll escape it. But it's good to know the worst case scenario. PFCs, human carcinogen linked to cancer, kidney damage, reproductive problems found in waterproof clothing, shoes, no iron clothing. Boy, the no iron clothing. I remember when I was young, before 20s, I went to Europe and I traveled, and they just came out with non-iron clothing because they didn't want to iron stuff or take it to a cleaners. That probably damaged me for life, that stuff. No iron clothing, that was when it first came out, you can imagine how much chemicals that must have had. Okay, benzene, okay, you can read the rest, not a pretty picture. Then the last page is on Weyerhaeuser, look at the bottom. See the name? Weyerhaeuser or Weyerhaeuser, they pronounce it differently. So they're one of the, you know, ask Dennis, they're one of the #1 lumber business companies. I don't know if they're #1, I don't know if they
They are.
They are?
Oh, yeah, they
Yeah.
supply Home Depot.
Yeah. So these guys are the, you know, the big lumber suppliers. So they're talking about questions and answers about adhesives and formaldehyde emissions. So they separate the types of formaldehyde from phenol and what's the other one? Mighty fast readers, beat me to it. Maybe I'm going to ask it. There's two types, phenol and
Polymeric,
what?
is it, what we're talking about adhesives?
No, what is the other one? But phenol is the least dangerous, right? They should mention the other one for comparison.
Urea.
Urea. Who said that? Who? You did. Yeah, urea formaldehyde. So urea is a compound, uric acid. So that's the bad one. Phenol formaldehyde is not near as bad, but I don't know how near. I know it's. I believe that it's not as bad as urea, but I'm not sure it's as harmless as they say. But anyway, they bank on only using phenol, so you can read that. It does mention the European standards on the back. In Germany, the E1 standard sets a maximum limit of 0.10 parts per million for formaldehyde emissions from many types of wood-based composite products. But we have, what's our level? Point. Oh, well, maybe Weyerhaeuser does point. Oh, no, the voluntary standard for industry is 0.2. So Germany's less and Weyerhaeuser apparently uses less too. So they're trying to get on our good side. So Dennis, what do you think about Weyerhaeuser?
They make all that,
What?
all that.
What?
These Carolines you have there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they make. They
I know.
make that and then the help.
But I mean, what if, as a company, what do you think? Did you get any sense?
Oh, they're a great company.
You're a good company.
Yeah, they recycle everything. They're.
So this is the Paralam cut. This is what it looks like. It's a beam. But this guy cut these little sections. He got a bunch of old ones from Hayward Galita. You know how they have stacks in Hayward Galita of just stuff that no one took? They used to. And we'd go there and say, hey, can we have that stack? No one's gonna buy that. So they give it to us. So he was my dean. So we'd go get stuff and then he'd cut up. He made a whole floor of this. Pretty interesting, huh? All right. Where are we? Open your book. We're gonna save the Rissinger film one more time. And we'll just step through the chapter 14. We're supposed to read 14 and 15. Read 15 for next week. And we'll quickly look at 14. And then we'll go home. And the chapter's named Indoor Air Quality, page 273. So this shows a guy with liquid nails for the flooring. Remember we talked about adhesing the subfloor to the joist, eye joist. And apparently they make a liquid nails type product that doesn't have the high VOCs. If you go to Home Depot, they usually have all their things are legally VOC, you know, the maximum, but they also have non-VOC and real low VOC alternative products. So you just have to look over. Remember that whole shelf of caulking? That's divided into, you know, one of the ways it's divided is in the amount of VOC. Countertop substrate. Particle board has a lot of formaldehyde, but you can get wheat board. Which is cleaner, but it's a lot more expensive. Well, this chapter has a lot of good stuff on. They have a lot of stuff on mold. Read that punch list for mold too. That's a really good. On page 277. If you have mold in your house or you suspect it, read that punch list. It'll help you figure out how to take care of it. So that's a good thing just to keep in mind. Turn to 278. Look at that. They peeled back that wallpaper. Look at that mold. Couldn't even see it from the other side. Look at that. Woo. Carpeting, there's a big move to not do carpeting or else do natural carpeting. They say wool carpeting doesn't have the mites and stuff in it that's bad for you. The mites aren't bad for you. The mites poop. Remember I said everything in the world was a matter of some animal pooping? Mites poop, and that poops an allergen to a lot of people. So if you have synthetic carpets, mites will get in there, and so you could have that outgassing of the mite poop. Not everybody's affected by it, but and a lot of carpet, cheap synthetic carpet has formaldehyde and stuff preservatives. You know why it stinks? You know when you put in new carpet, how it's ungodly, it stinks. Unless you pay a lot of money for it. If we go to the store and get it, it usually stinks. That stuff's really bad. Don't even go put it wherever you're gonna do it and let it sit for a week before you even use the room. I mean, I don't know how anybody gets to live in it anyway. But wool is more expensive, and you know, the Persian carpets, you know, those kind you can buy, the throw rugs, those are all made out of wool, so those are great. They're expensive. You can get they make cheaper ones now. Or people are going just with wooden floors and smaller throw rugs. You know, like I did cork. There's a bunch of alternatives to rugs. You know, here it's not so bad, but in cold climates, rugs are really nice, right? Carpet. You get out of your bed in a cold morning in the winter, and it's nice to go down on a carpet. But again, you can use throw rugs that are less expensive. This covers the same things: formaldehydes, vinyl chlorides. So look at these. The garage, isolate the garage. So when we build garages, like if you went to my house, my garage was right there. The door wasn't particularly air waterproofed, or what's the word? Gasketed. You know, they just use a regular exterior door. But I don't keep a lot of bad stuff in that garage. But if I was a painter or carpenter and I had a lot of solvents and stuff, I would make sure that door between the house, if your garage is attached to your house, has a good seal on it to keep that stuff from getting into your house. And also you don't want to heat the garage either, so it's going to be cold, and the cold air will come in too and steal some of that heat. So that door is important. Nowadays they make you put a fire door if it's new. You know, a certain hour fire door, so that fire starts in your garage won't burn the doors fast. Nothing stops fires, but when they have like a 3-hour fire door, it means it'll take 3 hours for the fire to get to that door. So if you have 3 hours that you're safe in your house, you can get out of there and get all your pets out. So that's meaningful, right? It won't stop it, but at least it'll, you know, help you survive a little better. Radon, we talked about radon. You can read more about it there. Ventilation, we talked about ventilation. We'll do a blower door test. We'll talk more about that when we do that Saturday. And then the next chapter, 15 on interior finishes. They don't talk so much about toxic thing. They're just going to talk about materials in general. And also I have a handout from Green Building for Dummies. That's you guys that I'll pass out next week or when we get to it. So next week, try to make a point of coming because it's a midterm prep. And if I don't give the answer outright, I'll give you where to think about it or where to find it in your books. So it's really worthwhile to get here if you can. So that'll be a midterm prep, and we'll talk about green building programs as well. The prep won't take the whole period, and maybe we'll join with them. We'll see. And then let's look ahead. Then after midterm, we have a review. Alternative building, that'll be fun. We'll look at a lot of worldwide alternatives. You know, we may end up using some of those in this country. For various reasons, so. I have a couple nights on that. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on around the world. Then we'll have a night on building performance and a lab, corresponding lab. Then we do materials at chapter 15. Then we have Thanksgiving. Then we have a thing on architecture and development. That'll be fun, maybe. I think it's fun. Any questions? If this class was at 10 in the morning, would there be more questions?
Nope, you answered them all, Mr. Foster. You answered them all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll look at the Matt Risinger, what's his name? Risinger film next time, one of these days. It's a worthwhile thing, I keep running out of time.
No.
All right, you guys, get out of here. We're coming to Wake Center Saturday, yeah? Be there or be square.
I'll do.
See that?
Sorry for missing Saturday, and do you have, I can stay to get the gist of any of the, you said in your email, like, you could
Yeah,
explain like any
yeah.
of the critical points.
Can you stay a little Saturday?
Saturday, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Won't take long.
okay,
I can give you the rundown real fast. So, yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, have a good night.
sure, you too. Have a good night. No, you too. Yeah.